Airlines get the headlines for going green, but MROs are doing the heavy lifting. Airlines have committed to a net zero carbon emission by 2050, and you've probably heard all about the sustainable aviation fuel, more efficient engines, and maybe even electric aircraft someday. But did you know that a significant portion of an airline's carbon footprint doesn't come from flying? It comes from everything else: ground operations, maintenance, and the part supply chain. And that means MROs, the companies that maintain and repair aircrafts, are now part of the carbonization equation. I'm Nadira Shamsuri, and welcome to the EV Podcast. Today we're looking at why sustainable MRO practices matter and what's actually changing the industry and how ASEAN fits into this shift. Let's begin. In 2021, the International Air Transport Association, IATA, announced Fly Net Zero by 2050. That's a commitment from airlines worldwide to reach net zero carbon emissions within 25 years. And meeting that target is about more than just fuel and aircraft design. It includes everything an airline is responsible for, and that's where it gets complicated. Carbon accounting divides emissions into three categories called scopes. Scope 1 is direct emissions, the fuel an airline burns. Scope 2 is indirect emissions from energy, the electricity an airline buys to power its offices and facilities. Scope 3 is everything else in the value chain. That includes aircraft manufacturing, parts production, ground handling, catering, and maintenance. For airlines, Scope 3 is huge. It can represent more than half of their total carbon footprint, and a big chunk of that comes from MRO operations. The maintenance shops, the parts they use, the chemicals they apply, and the energy their hangars consume. There's also a compliance layer. CORSIA, the Carbon Offsetting and Reduction Scheme for International Aviation, is a program run by ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization. CORSIA requires airlines to offset carbon emissions above a baseline. It started as a pilot from 2021 to 2023. Phase 1 runs from 2024 to 2026. Phase 2 runs from 2027 to 2035. Airlines are accountable under CORSIA, but their MRO partners affect the data. If an MRO uses more energy-intensive processes, generates more waste, or sources brand new parts instead of repaired ones, that shows up in the airline's Scope 3 reporting. Airlines are under pressure to reduce their carbon footprint across the entire operation, and increasingly that means asking their MRO partners what they're doing about sustainability. So what can MROs actually do? There are four main areas where changes are happening right now. The first is repairing and reusing parts instead of buying new ones. This is called circular materials. That means keeping parts in service longer through repair and reuse instead of scrapping them and buying new ones. In the industry, this is called USM, or used serviceable material. These are parts removed from retired aircraft or engines that are inspected, overhauled, and returned to service. Regulators like the FAA and EASA have mature guidance on USM. It's legal, it's safe, and it's growing. So why does this matter for carbon? Because manufacturing a new part, especially something like an engine fan blade, requires massive amounts of energy. Forging metal, machining, surface treatments, every part you repair instead of replace avoids that embodied carbon. So when an aircraft reaches the end of its life, it gets torn down. Industry best practices shows that 80 to 90% of an airframe by weight can be recovered. Engines can approach near total reuse for recycling. Every fan blade returned to service avoids the energy cost of forging a new one. The second area is switching to cleaner chemicals. MRO work involves a lot of chemicals: paint strippers, metal treatments, primers, disc greasers. Historically, many of these contain toxic or hazardous substances. One big example is chromates, specifically hexavalent chromium or chromium 6. This has been widely used in primers and metal coatings because it prevents corrosion extremely well, but it's also known as a carcinogen. Under the EU's REACH regulation, which governs chemical safety, chromates are being phased down. Authorizations have sunset dates or require reauthorization with strict controls, so the industry is shifting to chromate-free coating where possible. The tighter handling where chromates are still needed. Another shift is in solvents. Legacy vapor degreasers use chemicals that release volatile organic compounds or VOCs into the air. Modern enclosed degreasers with solvent recovery system can cut emissions by around 99% compared to older open systems. Some MROs are moving to enzymic cleaners, which use water-based or biological processes instead of harsh solvents. These changes reduce health risks for workers and cut emissions. But they also require process changes, retraining, and sometimes longer cycle times. It's not just swapping one bottle for another. The third area is going paperless. Aircraft maintenance generates mountains of paperwork, task cards, logbooks, compliance records, and parts traceability documents. IATA has been pushing the industry towards electronic logbooks. In 2024, the IATA published a roadmap for airlines and MROs to digitize these records. EASA, the European Union Aviation Safety Agency, has guidance on electronic records and digital signatures. Going paperless cuts waste, but the bigger benefit is speed and accuracy. Digital records reduce errors. They speed up turnaround times and they create cleaner audit trails for airlines' ESG reporting. The fourth area is making hangars more energy efficient. Hangars are energy intensive. They're massive spaces with high ceilings. They run 24/7. Heating, cooling, and lighting all add up. 3 common upgrades are happening across the industry. One move is to install LED lighting. LEDs use a fraction of the energy of older lighting and last much longer. There are also HVLS fans which stand for high volume, low speed in places with 4 seasons. These fans push warm air down from the ceiling in winter and improve air circulation in summer, reducing heating and cooling demands. Last but not least, on-site solar panels. Large ASEAN MROs like ST Engineering are adding photovoltaic arrays that tracking energy used per maintenance visit. They publish metrics like kilowatt hours per heavy check and kilograms of CO2 per shop visit. All in all, these measures have led to lower energy costs, better lighting, and measurable carbon reductions. So where does this fit for ASEAN? In 2030, a new player entered the market, Carbon MRO Services, a joint venture between us, Aviation, and Marubeni Corporation. Carbon MRO was established to provide aircraft maintenance and teardown services in Malaysia. Carbon MRO operates an engine shop in Rawang and the hangar at Subang Airport, while the company's primary business is heavy maintenance for narrow-body aircraft. Its teardown services play a critical role in the circular material economy. The goal is to recover and reintroduce serviceable parts back into the supply chain, so as to reduce the need for energy-intensive new part manufacturing. Demand for aircraft heavy maintenance in Southeast Asia is expected to grow from 380 million in 2022 to approximately 630 million by 2032. Teardown demands is also rising. The number of retired aircraft in Southeast Asia is predicted to increase by an average of 7.5% per year. That is supply meeting demand. And the business model is evolving. Digital part passports are coming, making traceability faster and more secure. AI-based lifecycle prediction will improve USM valuations. Companies like Carbon MRO are combining maintenance, asset trading, and recycling under one roof. That's how we built an MRO model that survives the next 25 years. I'm Nadira Shamsuri. Thanks for listening to DV Podcast, where we examine Southeast Asia's aviation industry one topic at a time.